How you guys doing today? What's up, y'all? Thanks for coming out, spending your Friday night with me. How you guys doing? Welcome to the channel, everybody. My name is Doug, and this is Leaving the Dream. If you've never been here before, I just want to give a big shout out to all my patrons. I already see you guys up in the chat. I knew I could count on you guys. Thank you guys, man. Nons, Shauna, Eddie, Brokart Wolf. How you guys doing today? If you are interested in the notable crimes of Hawaii's past and present, head on over to patreon.com/Doug Korenic and sign up in any amount. Come hang out with us 5:30 p.m. Monday nights. We'll talk about everything Hawaii and crime. We'd love to have you. The Patreon is amazing. You'll see him in the chat tonight. We're doing big things in 2022. We'd love to have you. Come check it out. Patreon.com/Doug Korenic. Okay, I want to give a quick couple shout outs. I got 5 shout outs today for my 5 patrons of the week. Marcus, Bernadine, Carolyn Bacon, Rachel Iga, and Reiko Namiki. And of course, I want to give a shout out to my 5 newest patrons: Mikey Osefa, Kayla O'Sullivan, Mandy, Jolie Stoltz, and Chad Kikuda. Thank you guys for the support. I'll see you on Monday night. I really do appreciate you guys. Next week, we're going to be finishing up Honolulu Homicide, the very last chapter. We're going to do a wrap up, go through what we loved and hated about the book, all the different crimes that we went through. It took like 8 months to go through this sucker. You can see all my notes, all my highlighters. And then next week, we will begin the Mailbox Conspiracy, the inside story of the greatest corruption case in Hawaii history. Talking about the Kealoha Mailbox Conspiracy. We're going to go through chapter by chapter, break it down, and I think you guys are going to love it. So go sign up if you want to be a part of that. Today, however, we are going to be talking about something pretty exciting, something we don't see very often. What's up, Marissa? How you doing, Marissa Alvarado? Nate Fleming in the house. What's up, Cherdan? Ooh, from Hilo. Good to see you guys. Mikey's, what's up, Mikey's? Kavehi, how you doing, girl? Good to see you guys. Pam Santos in the house. We're going to be talking about the 38-year-old cold case, the murder of Lisa Fracassi. The Dav Track channel. How come you never talked about the Hawaii Low Ridge case? I know. Man, I got so much to catch up on. It was a lot going on for that Sam and Tyrell video and interview. So I got to catch up. I know. Thanks for reminding me. I haven't forgotten about it. I'll get into that stuff. We did talk about it in our Patreon a little bit. We usually talk about all those things in the Patreon, but I'll make sure I get a public video in, okay? Appreciate you. I did some research on the history and background of Lisa Fracassi and the suspect that we'll talk about. And so I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background. 96749KL. Appreciate you and your knowledge. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming through. Thanks for all the love. All right, guys. Like I do, if you're new here, occasionally I'll drop links in the chat. You can click on those links and open up what I'm looking at so you can see what I'm looking at. And actually take a look at some of these places that I have on the map. I got some Google Map images so you can actually see. And as always, life is funner in the chat. Make sure you say what's up in the chat and make sure you give your input. If you know about the places I'm talking about and you know the particular exotic nightclub that I'm going to talk about in this particular video, occasionally people know who was managing it, who was running it, bringing back memories. So feel free to drop it in the chat. We love to hear what you guys have to say. We love the input. All right, Lisa Ann Fracassi. I'm not sure if you say her name right. It could be Fracassi. I'm going to say Fracassi for now on, okay? Lisa Ann Fracassi. She was born in 1958 in New Jersey, and she moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida to pursue her career in nursing. This is way back. This is before she moved to Honolulu. She did work at the University Community Hospital in 1982. I found an old newspaper clipping about that. So I know that she was trying to go into nursing, and I know that she did work at a hospital and she was in nursing school. But she kind of ran into some trouble. And I was shocked, actually. It's quite relevant to stuff that we've been talking about. So check this out. On May 3rd, 1987, this is what, 7 years before her murder. 7 years before this, in 1987, at 11:09 p.m., when she was 29 years old, this girl's driving down the turnpike in Florida. She was driving a 1982 Chevy Z28, and she was stopped by Sergeant Jimmy Terry and Corporal John Stanley of the Sumter County Sheriff's Department. So they stopped them for inoperative tag lights. So basically those little lights that shine at your license plate, one of hers was broken, and they stopped her on the freeway. They pulled her over. When they pull her over, she's driving the car. Problem is, she's got a suspended license. So he arrests her for that suspended license. Well, while he's arresting her, there's another dude in the car. He's a 49-year-old. She's 29 at the time. So you got a dude 20 years older than her. He's 49 in the car with her. His name was Robert Lee Huff. But she was driving on the suspended license. What's up, Habit? How you doing, bro? Good to see you. Salty Journey's in the house. Mike Q in the house. Thanks for coming through. So she gets arrested for driving on a suspended license. But the officer notices, keep in mind, you guys, this is 1982. No, sorry, this is 1987. We're in the height of the Coke Wars, right? This is cocaine cowboys. This is in Fort Lauderdale. So, well, they're from Fort Lauderdale at this point. So they live in South Florida. Cops in 1987, they're looking for coke everywhere. Everybody's got coke. Coke was powering Florida at that time. Both the banks, everybody's energy. There wasn't energy drinks. You just snort a line of coke. What's up, Carrie Lynn? How you doing? What's up, Kai? How you doing, bro? Thanks for coming through, my man. So in 87, they get stopped. She's getting arrested for driving with a suspended license. While he's arresting her, the police officers notice cocaine residue in the car. Imagine how much cocaine residue you gotta notice in a car from outside the car, right? What I'm imagining is they were snorting lines off, credit cards or mirrors or off their thumbnails or whatever while they're driving and got coke everywhere. They end up searching the car because of the coke residue. I don't know if they had dogs or whatever. It doesn't really say here in the newspaper. But the officer noticed the residue. The vehicle was searched. Inside the car, police found 1.5 kilos of coke. That's 3.7 pounds. And they had 28 grams of marijuana, which, be honest, in 1987, it was illegal. It was mad illegal in 1987. I think mostly because the drug trade was banging back then. And that's when the whole war on drugs happened. And it was the same people pushing coke that were pushing buds because they were bringing them in by the bricks. So they found them with 28 grams of buds and 3.7 pounds of coke. I mean, just throw the buds out at this point. We're talking 3.7 pounds, a kilo and a half of coke in the car. You can just picture like every movie you've seen. That's what that looked like inside this car. This was Lisa, this sweet girl who's trying to be a nurse. She's 29 at the time. So she gets charged with possession of cocaine, possession with intent to sell cocaine, and trafficking in excess of 400 grams of cocaine. Those 3 charges she's facing. She gets felony possession of marijuana because it's the amount. It wasn't to distribute. And then possession of drug paraphernalia, that's 5 charges. And the 6th charge was driving on a suspended license. The other dude gets all the charges except for he wasn't driving on a suspended license. So he gets everything except for that. Her bond gets set at $500,000 in 1987. Think about that. That's a trip. That trips me out. It's unreal how much money that was in 1987. So I don't know what happens with that. I looked everywhere. I did all my research. I pulled all my spots. I could not find anything that happened with that. All I know is that's in 1987. In 1990, Lisa moves to Honolulu. 808 Eco Beast, what's up? How you doing, bro? By 1990, she moves from Florida to Honolulu. She obviously didn't go to jail. I don't know if she squealed on the people she was getting it from, or she was just driving the car, right? Like, he picked her up, she was driving the car, didn't know what was going on. He might have went to jail. I never got too deep into him because this just popped up tonight. I didn't have all that much time. So I don't know much about Robert Lee Huff, but my guess is that fool went to jail and it wasn't hers. They got her on constructive possession. Sir Charles, yo, what's up? How you doing, bro? So, any case, 3 years later, after at 3.5 pounds of coke, she's in Honolulu now trying to start her life over. It's probably what happened. Remember, she's born in Jersey, moves to Florida, starts moving coke with this dummy. And then 3 years later, she's like, yo, I can't do this no more. She moves out of state, probably where she could try to get a job. Now, at this point, she'd never been to Honolulu, and she'd never been an exotic dancer before. All I know is this, that in 1990, she needed money. She wanted to pursue nursing. So she needed to save some loot. She needed to move away so no one knew where she was. No one knew who she was. Her past wouldn't follow her, that whole cocaine arrest. So she gets a job as an exotic dancer at Pure Platinum. That was located at 2301 Kuhio Ave in Waikiki. At the time, it was a gentleman's club. It was managed by a dude named Conrad Maddox, but it was co-owned by David Shooter. Is it Shooter or Shutter? My Patrons always correct me. Pam, I think, always corrects me. I think it's Shooter. If it's Shooter, tell me in the comments. Shooter, if that's how you pronounce it. I know that it's Schuttr. We talked about David Shutter because he was involved with a lot of clubs that had some organized crime action. Shutter. Attorney Utter. Okay, cool. Shutter is his name. So it was co-owned by David Shutter at the time. We talking about Mitsuken? Love Mitsuken. So she moves to Honolulu to open Pure Platinum. I don't know how that works. I don't know if she like saw an ad in the newspaper. Who knows? If I'm writing the story, what I think happens is David Shutter runs an ad in Miami or Florida saying, oh, PJ, Doug rules, $20 in the super chat. Thank you, PJ. Man, that's awesome. Thanks for the support. I appreciate that. It is all love. Thank you. Mahalos for that. Right on, dude. Thank you. PJ rules. What's up, Sin? Okay. So she said, like a shutter. See, you know me. That's the best way to explain it. Yeah. That $20 lap dance. That's what that was. PJ just paid for that. Okay. So David Shutter, how I think in my head is that he ran ads probably where there's a lot of strippers. And that was a common thing. If you wanted to open a club, you start recruiting girls from other places because they're beautiful and exotic and all that other stuff. So I don't know exactly what happened. All I know is she moves there to open Pure Platinum. That's what she was under the stand. She was under the understanding that she was moving out there to open Pure Platinum. That eventually became Mad Dogs. And then it was Deja Vu at one point, but it eventually became Mad Dog Saloon, which now is not there anymore. It's the International Marketplace. I'll leave a link right here for you guys. If you want to click on this link in the chat, that is what it looks like now. For those of you who don't live in Hawaii or don't know what I'm talking about, now it is International Marketplace. But it used to be a building that had a bunch of clubs in it. Remember Diamonds? I remember when it was Diamonds, it was the Shack. I used to work the McDonald's Kuhio special duty job, and at bar closure, it was always popping off at like 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. So that's what it looks like in there. The Dab Track channel. Your channel is the bomb. Love the local cases. Man, thank you. I appreciate that. Pam worked at Jungle Juice. Woo. Okay, so she flew out there to open the club. She'd never danced before. She was a new girl. But while she was dancing there, she met a woman named Renee Jensen. Renee was the makeup artist for the girls. All I know is Renee was a makeup artist at Pure Platinum. I don't know how that works. I didn't know you had like in-house makeup girls that would do makeup for the dancers. But apparently that's what it was. She was a makeup artist for the girls. She wasn't a dancer. And they became fast friends. Lisa ended up working there for like 3 years at Pure Platinum. And she ended up quitting to go work at other places, including Exotic Paradise. And we're going to talk about Exotic Paradise because that's where she worked in the end. So we're coming up to the week of the event, the week of what happened. Thursday, October 28, 1994. I Googled, found Platinum Lounge. Thought it might be the same. No, it's not the same, Nate. Wow, Pam says most places have in-house glam squads. I didn't know that. Wow, good to know. So they got makeup girls. So Thursday, October 28, 1994, Lisa stops by Renee's house to drop off a pumpkin for Renee's daughter to celebrate Halloween. Halloween's coming up. And Renee says Lisa was always doing that kind of stuff. She was super nice, super kind, a sweet girl. Always, she'd give you the last $5 in her pocket, and she always did that kind of stuff. She always wanted to do things for other people. So, what's up, Kat? So, a few days, they had been friends for about 4 years at this point. So she moves out there to work Pure Platinum, meets Renee. They're friends for about 4 years. She quits Pure Platinum, starts working at Exotic Paradise. So about a week before the incident, she sees Lisa. Lisa drops off a pumpkin for her daughter. Halloween was coming up in a few days. And on October 30th, 1994, Renee spoke with Lisa on the phone. She talked about going to the beach, what she had planned for Halloween. It was just like a normal conversation. There was nothing really out of the ordinary. Nothing really caught her off guard. But that would be the last time Renee would ever speak with Lisa. So we're talking October 30th. So the day before Halloween. So I believe that's Saturday night. Lisa lived at the second floor of what at the time was called the Aston Honolulu Prince. That was located at 415 Nahua Street in Waikiki. I'm going to drop the Google Street Map for you guys in the chat so you can see what it looked like. It is still there now, however. It is called the Pearl. It's called the Pearl Hotel, Waikiki. I'll drop that right here in the chat. 808 Eco B says, yep, Fourth Watch had to take a post at all cabaret licensed clubs at closing. Yep. So we'd always usually post up, you know, had all the clubs right on Kuhio. That's where all the action happened. That's where all the shootings happen, stabbings happen. It's all the fights. It was not uncommon for every single weekend night starting Thursday, Friday, Saturday for you to get a call for 30 Samoans for fighting, you know, 20 Filipinos or 10 Samoans. It'd be maybe more like 3 Samoans fighting 20 Filipinos. But it'd be like 30 people fighting in the street. And normally you get a call, 30 people fighting in the street, you show up, nobody there. But in Waikiki on a Friday night, Saturday night, you get a call, 30 people fighting in the street. There's 40 people fighting in the street. Man, it was action in Waikiki back then. That's when I had that guy that used to run around. This is 2012. Had that guy look like, he had the Popola guy that he would always wear that necklace, and he thought he was, what's his name? He always wore yellow. Frick, we were just talking about him the other day. It'll come to me. So, she lived on the second floor of the Aston Honolulu Prince located at 415 Nahua. I just dropped that in the chat. It's currently called the Pearl Hotel, Waikiki. She'd moved into that building April of 94. So she'd been there like 7 months at this time. She was living in the hotel. So it's pretty typical actually. It's a hotel, but she's paying nightly rates or weekly rates or monthly rates, whatever it is. Probably monthly rates, honestly, if you look at the Pearl right now and how it looks like, it was probably a monthly rate. But then she was dancing at night. So that's how she was doing things. She worked as an exotic dancer at a club called Exotic Paradise on Keomoku Street from January of 94 until October 31st of 94. So about 10 months, she'd already been working at Exotic Paradise. That's on Keomoku. The owner of that club at the time was Kimza Tranberg. Kimza owned a hostess bar called Misty One, if you guys remember that. Misty One is still around, if I'm not mistaken. At the time, it was 815 Keomoku Street, but now it's at 1224 Kona. So it used to be on Keomoku, but the current one now that I believe is open, unless it closed during COVID, it was open when I left in 2018, but that was at 1224 Kona Street. And I don't know if it's open anymore. Anybody who lives out there could tell me. The building it was at in 1994 is where Asahi Grill is now. So, Kaveh said, back in 94, choke dealers used to live in the hotels on lures too. They all knew the dancers and took care of them. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the thing about Waikiki back then is the prostitutes, all the pimps, they stay in the hotels on Kuhio, and they can look down from their balconies onto the strip, onto the track, and they can watch their girls. When I was undercover, I tried to pick up a hooker once, and I'll never forget, her pimp drove by on a moped and whistled at her. And as soon as she heard that whistle, like, she knew he was burning me. He was saying he's a cop or whatever. But man, they had it on lock. It was a solo from San Francisco who had moved up there to just be a pimp. And had this dude named Tobias Davies. Anybody remember that guy? Again, it's a Holly guy from somewhere, California, whatever, but he was like a pimp trying to be a real big pimp. He ended up getting hooked up. He's gone now. So, at the time, Exotic Paradise is where Asahi Grill is now. Asahi Grill, great food too, by the way. If you've never been out there, go Asahi Grill. It's in that little place by Imua Lounge on Keomoku. That's where Misty One was at the time. Now it's on Kona Street. Kimza's that Kimza Tranberg that I'm talking about, who owned Misty One, Kimza's mother-in-law, so Kimza's husband's mom, owned Misty Two. And Misty 2 was located at 1661 Kapiolani. That's where Jazz Mines is now. So I'll give you a link to Asahi Grill. So if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, I got stories from Asahi Grill. That was always a fun place because it was right next to Imua Lounge. I always had bikers in that lot. All right, that link that I just dropped, PJ said, Misty One just changed to Hawaii by night this past month. Okay. Roger. Wow, Pam says, Kim's still around, must be in her 70s. No way. Man, my Patreon's out there in the streets. You guys know what's going on. Okay, that link I dropped, that was for Asahi Grill next to Imua Lounge. First time I ever went... Whoa, what's going on here? First time I ever went to breakfast with anybody when I was a police officer was Asahi Grill. I was new as a police officer, and I'm the, young blood, so I'm the one that's supposed to be canceling all the motormen. I'm the one that's supposed to be taking care of everybody. So I'm out there hustling, and every morning the motormen and the senior footmen who drive in white cars, they would go out to breakfast, especially on like a Saturday or Sunday or whatever. And I'd be grinding. But if it was super slow, there wasn't calls coming in. So I'll never forget, once they invited me to come out, they hit me up on my MDC and said, yo, come eat breakfast. It was my first time. And it was Tommy and John Rabago and a couple guys, second watch. And I knew I was going to have to dig out. Carrie Lynn says, amazing to learn all this. My mom owned multiple bars in Waikiki. None of this ever crossed my mind now that I'm wandering at age 65. Wow, I'm glad. I'm glad you think it's amazing, Carrie. Or is it Kari? Okay, so I went to Asahi Grill They ordered food. I ordered food. I knew better because you always hear in academy, don't order food. You're going to have to dig. And sure enough, they ordered food. I ordered food like an idiot. And as soon as the food came, we got a call. And I got to cancel everybody because literally the people I'm sitting with are all from my sector. And I got to cancel all them. So I'm in the restaurant with all the people that I got to take care of. So when the calls come in, none of them have to go nowhere. I got to dig out. So that was my first experience at Asahi Grill. It was probably, I don't know, September 2012, something like that. So Kimza's mother-in-law owns Misty 2 at 1661 Kapilani Boulevard, which is where Jazz Mines is. And I believe, oh, no way, Asahi Grill in Keomoku closed. Oh, you're right. That whole block's demolished. I forgot. That new condo used to have, what was it called? Panda Cuisine in like 2008, 2000 to 2014 or whatever. I used to always go there and eat. It was a good spot. Good call. Okay. So Lisa, this girl that we're talking about, she had just broken up with her boyfriend. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Lisa just broke up with her boyfriend of about 7 months in October. They had been together for about 7 months and they just broke up. He was a police officer with the Honolulu Police Department. How cops always get wrapped up with, oh, I just don't understand. This is not the first and this is not the second time we've talked about on my Patreon where we break down murders like this, where we find out a policeman was dating or involved in the person that gets killed. It ain't the first time or the second time. Now, the police officer was never involved, and we know that in all these cases because we broke them down. And in this case, he wasn't involved either. But still, it just shows the horrible decision-making patterns of a police officer. And any cop will tell you that. Cops are dumb. They make bad decisions with their personal life. Mostly because they deal with crazy stuff at work. And then their marriages fall apart. And then they end up dating the stripper. And then she gets killed and ends up missing. Like, it's just a thing. Or in the case of the police major HPD, who was dating that one hostess chick who ends up pushing crystal meth. Remember, they end up selling crystal meth, like trafficking crystal meth while he was a major? Yeah. So cops, man, they always figure out a way to screw up their life. This guy did a good job of keeping his name out of the newspapers. That's hard to do. But his name stayed out of it the whole time. I couldn't find it. And he didn't have anything to do with this, so I wouldn't have released it anyway. And this was, what, 38 years ago? So, no, not even. This is 28 years ago. Yeah, 28 years ago. Okay, so Lisa had just broken up with that dude. He was a cop with HPD. She had a male roommate for several months at this point, so it must have been tough out there, like being a dancer. But if you were still splitting your apartment, if you're dancing, you're splitting your Nahua Street hotel room with another dude, right? Like, you can't be doing that well. And they weren't romantically involved, I don't think. One time it said in there they were really just roommates, but maybe that meant they were boyfriend, maybe they were together, but you know, also not together, seeing other people or whatever, but the arrangement worked. I don't know the situation. All I know is she had a male roommate for several months, and her ex-boyfriend, this cop, he hadn't seen her for a few weeks. They remained friendly. Like, her friend Renee that I talked about earlier later told police and reporters that Lisa was friendly with her ex-boyfriend. Like, it wasn't a bad breakup or whatever. I think she started seeing somebody else. She had been seeing a new guy. A recent relationship had started when this incident took place. So, Lisa does not show up for work on Wednesday, October 27th. She didn't show up for work on Thursday, October 28th, and she didn't show up for work on Friday, October 29th. So she just doesn't show up for 3 days. She calls her boss, who we talked about earlier, Kimsa, and tells Kimza, I'm quitting. I got to go work for another place. So she doesn't show up Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, calls Friday and says, I quit. This is what Kimza's telling the reporters and the police the day after she was found dead. So she didn't show up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, calls Friday and quits to go work at another place. I'm assuming another club. I bet you there's a lot of turnover at that club. She probably worked over at 939, but at the time it wasn't called 939. I forget what it's called, but it wasn't called 939. It was located in the same building though. Funny story. I remember the first time I got sent to 939 when I was on First Watch. They sent me to Club 939 and I asked for the address. Oh, I felt like an idiot. I was new. I was nervous. I was in FTO phase, riding around with Galen Kaneshi, and the dispatcher says I got a kidnapping call at Club 939, and I was like, what was I at the time? 176, 1 Bravo 176. Can you send me the address to 939? And she's like, that's 939. Yeah, and there was a bunch of people in the apartment like me. Go figure, yeah. Okay, so she didn't show up for work for those 3 days, calls and quits. But on Saturday, October 30th, so she didn't show up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, quits on Friday, calls back on Saturday. She's like, yo, I gotta work. Can I come back to work? She calls Kimza. Kimza, please, can I come back to work? I'm sorry. Kimza's like, yeah, come on back. And you know how the strip club game works. Like they gotta, because of the turnover and because of all that, she worked that night. And she was 37 years old at this point, you guys. I guess maybe been in 4 strip clubs in Honolulu because we got calls there all the time. There was fights all the time, normally between girls. One girl got upset. This other girl walked up on stage while she was dancing and like just punched her off the stage, knocked her tooth out in front of everybody. I've been to like maybe 4 of those clubs, and 37 seems like, listen, I'm 40. I just turned 40. I'm just saying 37 seems like, you know, you downhill at that point. So she's like 37, still trying to figure something out. It was under the guise of her trying to make money to save for nursing school, but she's 37. Like she was in nursing school when she was 20. So when you're 20 trying to go to nursing school, that whole cocaine trafficking thing, I'm sure, you know, messed her up. Then she goes to Hawaii and yeah, man. I don't know. Who am I to judge? She looked pretty in her photo. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's like the thing. I don't know. Seems like that's over the hill for a dancer. Seems like that's over the pole, over the stage. All right, so she calls on Saturday and she's like, yo, can I come work? She said, yeah. So she's like, all right, I'll be there in a little bit. Swings by, just swoops by the strip club and pops in for a shift. So she works on Saturday, the 30th. She works all night and she gets off around 2 a.m. on Sunday. Nate says, my coaches took me to 939 when I turned 21. Those girls were all about the old guys. The Heineken was nice though. Yeah, old guys get money. Okay, so she works Saturday night all the way till 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. She leaves 2 a.m. I believe that's Halloween, actually. Now that I think about it, I think that was Halloween morning. So she leaves on the morning of Halloween, 2 a.m. And that was the last time anybody saw her. The club was closed on Monday, November 1st. I don't know why. But the club, maybe it just closes on Mondays. But the club was closed on Monday. So there was no reason for anybody to see her Monday. But she was scheduled to work Tuesday, the 2nd of November, and she never showed up. Her boss, Kimza, calls Lisa, but she doesn't pick up. on the 3rd at about 5 p.m. And then she calls again on the 4th, which is Thursday. And she didn't pick up. Lisa never answered the phone. And no one ever saw her again. So that Thursday that she calls, I'm sorry, that was the 3rd. Thursday, November 3rd. So Wednesday, November 2nd, she calls. And Thursday, November 3rd, she calls her. So that day, Thursday, November 3rd, around 12:05 p.m., one of the housekeepers for that, what was it called? What'd they call it? The Aston Honolulu Prince at 415 Nahua. One of the housekeepers went to the room. She lived in 206 at the time, and the housekeeper showed up to give her linens and towels, like what would be typical. But there had been a do not disturb sign on the handle of the door for several days at this point, from Halloween, since Sunday. This was Thursday. So for 4 days, the do not disturb sign was on the door. The housekeeper knocks on the door and there was no response. So I don't know if they have a policy, like after 4 days you go in. Anybody ever worked housekeeping or hospitality know how that works? If they gotta go in and check. I imagine there's something, right? I think there's probably policies with hotels now. But there was no responses. So she enters the room, and that's when she discovered the body of Lisa Fracassi. Lisa had been strangled. She did have bruises to her body and her neck. Investigators believe that she had been dead since Saturday. It looked like, they have people who, based on forensics, can determine how long bodies have been dead. And even that day, investigators had determined she had been dead about 4 days. So the decomposition that had taken place was about 4 days worth. So they guessed 4 days. Then when they started doing the investigation, they found out from friends and coworkers she had last been seen 4 days ago. So it just made sense. So she got off 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, and they think she died that day. So it's probably most likely that she went home with somebody or met somebody at home and died that night. If you asked me, she probably went home with somebody. She probably either went home with somebody on purpose from the club or somebody followed her home. And let's be honest, I read that she rode her bike a lot. And if she worked at the time, where was she at? Which one did she work at? Let's see. On Keamoku. So she worked on Keamoku and lived on Nahua. That's about a 15 or 20 minute walk. That's about a 15-minute walk. Call it 20 minutes. But it's probably a 5 or 7 minute bike ride, you know? So she probably rode her bike. And for me, the most likely scenario is that someone followed her home from the club or gave her a ride home from the club. Happens all the time. It really does happen all the time. We get a lot of attempted sex assaults on dancers after they bring home somebody from the club or meet somebody from the club. Or sometimes they are doing it for money. Sometimes the girls are dancing but then prostituting and take somebody home, take a John home or whatever. That's less likely because you never taken them to your apartment. And she was killed at her apartment or hotel. So I don't know. It seems to me like she was probably followed or caught a ride and then followed. So I don't know. We weren't there though. So the medical examiner determined that she had died of asphyxia due to strangulation. There was no signs of entry to the apartment, and they know that she died from being strangled. So either someone was in the apartment before she got there, or she let someone in the apartment, or it was someone that she knew. So she was 36 years old when she died. And She was hustling to become a nurse. Never happened. Johnny Walker. What's up, Johnny? How you doing, bro? Thanks for coming through all the way from, where you at? Thailand. Thanks for coming through. So there was a public service held Thursday, November 10th, 1994. It was at the banyan tree right in front of the zoo entrance. You know, that big tree right in front of the zoo? They did like a public service. It was like 200 people there. But then her funeral was held in New Jersey, back where she was from originally. Lisa's ex-boyfriend, the cop that I was talking about, he took a polygraph and passed it. He hadn't seen her in a few weeks. And he took the polygraph and passed that. And so, let me see. Eventually, the case just went cold. They literally had nothing. There was no cameras back then. The only thing that gets me is like, I don't know how it was in the 90s, but you still got to walk in the hotel. I don't know anything, Nons, about if she had been assaulted sexually or not, but I do know that the case just went cold. I think that they knew that she had had sex. I don't know. Here's the thing. They knew she had sex, and they knew that she had bruises on her and that she was dead and strangled. So I don't know if they conclusively determined that it had been a sex assault or if it had been consensual and then she was killed after. But the bruises are a lot of, I mean, that's a lot of indicia there. It was probably a wild night. I don't know exactly how that went. Can we just say that she probably was sexually assaulted? Listen, if the dude followed her home, which is what I think is most likely, he probably sexually assaulted her too. You know what I mean? Followed her in, knocked on the door, she opened the door, and then walked in the door, and then that was it. Or she let him in and went down like that. Either way, she probably was sexually assaulted. I just don't have any conclusive evidence of that. I don't have any access to the case files. I'm just going off of what they told reporters and police in the 90s. Because this thing just popped up in my feed like the next day, the last day or so. Wow, Sin, I bartended on the first floor for years. No way. So, Sin, was there like a common entrance? And was there a desk that someone had to check in at? Was there any way that she would have had to walk by somebody? You know what I mean? Like, and was there anyone like a concierge or a front desk that would have seen her walk in with somebody? You might know, Sin, if you remember that building. So, the case goes cold. Very small place, hardly any lobby, and a back entrance. See? Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect building for doing something like that then. Back entrance, small lobby, no one's going to notice you. Lots of corners. HPD, this is what, solving this case all comes down to this. A year earlier, in 1993, the Honolulu Police Department had just started using a new DNA storage method that would help preserve and not contaminate the DNA evidence that they had been recovering. Remember, at this point in Honolulu, first of all, everybody in Hawaii knows Hawaii's behind between 10 and 30 years the rest of the world in most things. When we're talking about technology trending, pop culture trending, like there's like a lag. It's gotten smaller because of the internet. It's probably only a few years now, but 15, 20 years ago, it was like there was a big lag, especially in technologies. When we were talking about the murder of Diane Suzuki, there had been DNA technology out for a really long time. Luminol that you spray that makes the iron in blood glow a bright, what is it, blue or green? That had been out for 15 years already on the mainland. But like literally that had been out since Diane Suzuki was murdered. But Honolulu didn't get it for like 10 or 15 more years. And once Honolulu got it, they went back to that dance studio and searched for luminol and found the blood. So for whatever reason, it just took a while. And DNA in the 80s and even into the 90s, all you could tell on blood was blood type. I think that's like having a pillowcase on your head running around a dark room. All you knew was that when you found blood, you could test blood type. That's it. For a huge part of our history, only the last 20 years could you actually determine DNA in Honolulu. So it was really rare to get that kind of stuff. So they didn't have DNA kits that could really tell us anything. But they knew that DNA technology was rapidly advancing. So HPD began using this reliable DNA storage method that avoided contamination. This was in 1993. Nan says it's easier to get away with murder back then. 100%. So many people got away with murder in the 80s and 90s in Honolulu. I mean, we know who the Honolulu Strangler is. And if you want to find out more about that, go on to patreon.com and sign up. We did, I don't know, 10 weeks on the Honolulu Strangler. Every single week, we did a 2-hour podcast just on a victim or the suspect or the circumstances. We broke that down, went into depth. Go check that out. Like, we know who he is now. We didn't know then. This dude stayed alive, living his life after raping and murdering all those girls. That's crazy. Even Diane Suzuki. Dude still lives on island right now. And Johnny Walker said the cost for DNA analysis was big. Yeah, big time. Most times you got to send it off island. And think about how hard it was to send anything off island in Honolulu in 1994. You know what I mean? So HPD, the reason we're able to solve this case, and let's just be honest and be careful what we say. We can't really say solve this case because the dude is never tried in court. He died. We know who he is. And we found his DNA there. It's likely he's the suspect. And I'm sure more will come out in the future about this dude. But anyway, and here's the thing. It goes cold. HPD starts using this new technology that preserves DNA. We put it in the storage locker for a while. We don't look at it. There's too many murders going on anyway. Too many murders going on. Tons of murders in the 80s and 90s. What's up, Kelsey? How you doing, girl? Thanks for coming out. So here's a twist that I thought was interesting. In the year 2000, a U.S. Navy sailor named John Eric Armstrong, he gets in trouble for murdering like 4 prostitutes in Detroit. He's like a husband and a father, got a bunch of kids. He's like a family man. They find out, we're going to break him down one day on the Patreon, I'm sure. They find out that this dude killed like 4 prostitutes in Detroit. Then, while he's being investigated for that, he confesses to other prostitutes that he killed. This dude was in the Navy. He was stationed on the USS Nimitz. What they find out is from 1992 till 1999, when he was on the USS Nimitz, he traveled to all these places on the Nimitz. He was in the Navy. Everywhere he went, he was killing girls, killing prostitutes. So while they're basically trying him for these prostitute murders in Detroit, he confesses to like 14 other murders. And he confesses to a bunch in Washington and a bunch of other states. But then he says to investigators, I killed 2 in Hawaii. Now, it's not uncommon for dudes to lie about that because at this point they're trying to they're already going to jail the rest of their life or a death penalty or whatever. Why not just throw on a few more? There's a bunch of unsolved ones, so let's just say I did them. But also, it's not uncommon for someone to say I did it and they actually did it. So you got to look into it, but I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't do these things. So in the year 2000, he claims that he kills 2 prostitutes in Hawaii. And so that sends detectives in Honolulu, going crazy because they're trying to find this out, trying to find out who killed this girl. They had no idea. Think about it. This is 2006 years later. And he was on the USS Nimitz from 92 to 99. However, he's got 0 arrests in Hawaii, which doesn't mean a ton, but it means he wasn't arrested for anything. And then he didn't have any arrests in his hometown. So really there's nothing on him. But this dude says he kills 2 prostitutes. He doesn't say which ones, but they start looking into it. And this is a promising lead. Can you imagine 6 years unsolved rape and murder? And all of a sudden some dude who gets caught doing multiple rapes and murders in multiple cities, who's stationed on the USS Nimitz, and his MO is to get off the ship, rape prostitutes and murder them, and then get back on the ship and then get stationed somewhere else. And he comes through Hawaii. That was promising. And they latched on. They thought they were going to get something out of that. But it come to find out, no evidence was ever found to support any of his claims. He ended up being accused of murdering more than a dozen in total, just not in Hawaii. So that ended up not going anywhere. So 2016, HPD, they get their cold case homicide kind of reorganizes and sets up this unit that's going to handle cold cases. And in 2018, they launched the Aole Poina, which means Never Forgotten project, in order to deal with the numerous unsolved murders that they had. Honolulu's got a bunch of unsolved murders. So they were like, we can't let these sleep. Let's do something about it. So in 2018, they launch. 3 years later, March of 2021, so we're talking a year ago, they re-examine fingerprints and DNA that was found at the scene. So this is how this works. When somebody dies, they take fingerprints. They take fingerprints, and usually photos of dental or whatever, when they're confirming the identities of the body. So it's common practice that everyone who dies gets fingerprinted. So we can confirm this is the dude who died. Well, why that's interesting is some people have never been fingerprinted until they die. Or if they were, those records were lost or police didn't have access to them because it was taken way before people shared databases. So when somebody dies, all of a sudden you have new sets of fingerprints. Why is that important? It's important because what if they're 70? There were 70 years where their fingerprints were never on file. You constantly are taking fingerprints off of crime scenes. The only way you catch a dude by taking fingerprints is if you already have their fingerprints on file. You can't just get a fingerprint, run it in some system, and it's going to show you who did it. If it's not an AFIS, you don't have anything to compare it to. Just like DNA. When we caught the rapist, Asphyxia Fio, in 2014, he had been punching Asian girls, like 20-year-old college-age Asian girls in the face, knocking on their door, posing as a construction worker, punching them in the face, and then raping them all day in their apartment, and then leaving. And we actually got saliva off of that one of the girls. He forced her to shower, but she protected this one area of her breast that he had licked. She knew she had DNA. It's a Japanese girl from Japan. She protected it. Well, when she went to the police department and said she had been raped, they did a rape kit and then she protected that whole thing. And they checked the DNA. We didn't have anything. Literally. There was no DNA match on anybody. It wasn't until we stopped him on that undercover operation and the next day, the SED, the Selective Enforcement Detail, stopped him and asked him for a voluntary buccal swab. And he gave a swab of his cheek. It was a 99.9999% match. That's how we caught him. He had never had it in the database. That's how this worked at the time. So if you don't have DNA and you don't have fingerprints, there's no way to find who they are. Well, that's why it's important to hold evidence as long as you can and try to preserve it. Because people are constantly dying, people are constantly getting arrested, and people are constantly submitting their DNA to those 23andMe's and genealogy websites. So every single year, you're getting multitudes of profiles that you can cross-reference fingerprints and DNA on, whether it's blood or spit or however you do it for your genealogy that you use. So that's why it's important to hold on to this evidence. The other issue that people run into when they're handling evidence is running out of it, because you only have so much blood. You scraped some blood off of, like one blood drop, you scraped it off, put it into a bag. All you got is those blood shavings. So the more you test it, the less you have. which means you don't have enough to test later when we anticipate the technology is going to be even better. So it's like a race against the clock. Can you imagine how many unsolved murders there are that if they would have just still had some blood 2 years later, when technology made an advance, that they could test it and actually solve the murder? What's up, Le? Aloha, thank you for coming. I was wondering when you're going to make it out. Good to see you in the chat. All right, so in 2020, police gave DNA and fingerprint evidence from the crime scene of Lisa, from Lisa's crime scene. They found fingerprints and they found DNA. They didn't say what it was. It could have been the oils from the finger of where they got the fingerprints, but this is 1994. Who knows? They could have swabbed it, whatever. I doubt it though. They probably found semen at the scene. So they sent that in 2020 during COVID to a crime scene lab called Parabon Nanolabs. It's a Virginia-based company that specializes in providing phenotyping services to law enforcement agencies. That company worked on profiles that help police departments and prosecutions across the country solve tons of cases in recent years. Genealogist CC Moore, who I found on Facebook, she announced this whole thing with Honolulu. This is why it made news. Genealogist CC Moore eventually identified Trent as the lone suspect in Fracassi's murder. Also helpful in figuring this whole thing out was the public DNA database, similar to popular genealogy sites like Ancestry.com and 23andMe. The problem is 23andMe and Ancestry.com, police officers and police agencies do not have access to those databases, but there are some that they do have access to. And I don't know if this is Cece who's explaining to this. But someone that works over there said his relatives at some point uploaded their DNA to a public DNA site called GED Match. That's what it is. So there's GEDmatch.com. Some of their relatives uploaded that to the public DNA site. This guy who's working it didn't work on the case, but said that from there, that's how they know that he did something. So they just have this pool of DNA of some of his relatives. And when they submitted it, police officers and police agencies had access to that DNA profile. They cross-checked it, and during their cross-referencing, they found out that this group of people had matching DNA. From there, they were able to narrow down who it was. The suspect's family said he died from congestive heart failure at the age of 48 in 2013. So, 2013, about 2 years after I got hired at HPD, he died at the age of 48 from CHF. That's super young for congestive heart failure. So he's dead. He's been gone for 9 years already. After his death, Trent's fingerprints were taken. That's how they were able to discover. They didn't even have Trent's fingerprints. So he dies, they take his fingerprints, because he's 48, they probably had to do an autopsy. Take his fingerprints, it gets thrown into APHIS. HB just so happens to have just sent those fingerprints and DNA samples to get checked. Boom. You got the DNA hit, and you got the fingerprint hit. Both came back to this Trent dude in the apartment where she was found dead. So we don't know he murdered her, but we know that he was there. That later helped authorities link him to the murder in March of 2021. Cecil Trent was 29 years old when he allegedly killed Lisa, if he killed her. But at the time of Lisa's death, he was 29, she was 36. So it was about a 7-year difference. I do wonder that, Shauna, like what his kids think and what his family thinks. He died in Honolulu on August 19, 2013. My Patreon, you guys will be able to see, I uploaded pictures on the feed of his obituary. But he died August 19, 2013 at the age of 48. He was born in 1965. Get this, in Michigan, right down the street from where I'm at right now. He was born in Michigan in 1965, about 4 years after my mom. He was a retired driver. Now, I don't know what kind of driver. I don't know if he was a truck driver, cab driver, or what. It would make sense that he was like a truck driver, yeah? So, yeah, it would make sense that he was a truck driver. He had 2 sons, Jason and Jesse. He had a daughter, Whitney. He had 2 brothers, Edward and James, and he had 1 sister named Karen Lyhip. What a trip. Congratulations to the Honolulu Police Department and that cold case unit. You guys killed it. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for pressing on. Thank you for not letting these cold cases die. I know they're looking into Diane Suzuki. I know they're looking into all these other cases. And it makes you feel like they're, you know, making things happen. It is hard, guys, to solve a 30-year-old murder. Right? 1994. So 28 years. I think I said Lei Lima. Thank you for the $20, Lei. You are sweet. Thank you so much. You're always so generous. One of my favorite people in the whole world. Thank you so much, Lei. Mahalos. Tell the boy I said what's up. Nans, we don't know what his connection to Lisa was. We don't know at all. All we know is his DNA was found in the room when they processed the scene 4 days later. So, we don't know. He was already dead when they found that. .808 EcoBee said, karma heart attack. Sounds like it to me. Oh, Lei says she was coloring eggs with the keiki. We're going to be doing that tomorrow. Yeah, what a trip, man. Can you guys believe it? Mana, Ka'ale, and Coco send warm Easter blessings to you and the Ohana. Thank you, guys. Happy Easter. Pam says, just like they caught the elusive Golden State Killer by harnessing genetic technology. Joseph James D'Angelo Jr. was a former police officer too. Isn't that crazy? Brocart Wolf said, I hope Lisa's spirit returned and plucked out his heart to cause him to die early. Sorry if I offended anyone. I think we can all agree. Minority Reporter. What's up, Minority? How you doing, bro? Thanks for coming through. Well, thank you guys for coming out. I'm glad I got to go over it with you. Shauna, Eddie, Nans, Nate, Kavehi, Mikey, Cherdan, Marissa Alvarado, K.O., Mike Q, Salty Journeys, Pam, Sin, Habit, Kai, Carrie, 808 Eco, Sir Charles. Appreciate you guys, man. Thank you, PJ and Lei, for the blessings. Appreciate those super chats, man. The Dab Track channel. Cat. Man, it's good to see you guys out here. First public live stream in 4 months. So we're going to start doing them more. I'll be seeing you guys out here a lot more. Thanks for coming through, Johnny. Kelsey Lee. Always good to see you. Tia Lisa Fernandez. Love your chat. Started watching you when you featured Sam and Tyrell. Well, thanks for all the support, Tia Lisa. I appreciate you. Brocart Wolf in the house. I really appreciate you coming out. Always good to see you. Thanks for always emailing me. Always sending me stuff. What's up, Bri? If you're watching, Thanks for coming through. My Melt in the house. Minority Reporter. Man, you guys are awesome. Thanks for all the love. Thanks for hanging out. It's been great. So make sure you drop in the chat what you want me to talk about next. We got a bunch of stuff coming up. We got things like that use of force issue with the sergeant in Waimanalo everybody's been talking about. We got the Hawaii Lower Ridge killer. Oh, Bree. My bad, Bree. Thanks for coming through, Bree. Thanks for watching. Thanks for letting Eddie watch. I know it was intense. Sorry, that's how we get down here. Unfortunately, all of our content is intense. What's up, Brandon? Thanks for coming through. Thanks for hanging out and watching the videos, man. Kalihi Cop. Thank you. Happy Easter to all you guys. Yeah, let me know what you guys want me to talk about. I'm probably going to do a breakdown. We'll do a Salmon Tyrell. We'll finish up the Salmon Tyrell. What's up, Aubrey? Thanks for coming out. I'm glad you said something. I'm glad you caught me live too, Dab Track. Yeah, we'll talk about use of force. We'll talk about the use of force continuum. If you want to see the use of force continuum, you can go to my website, dougkorenic.com. Check out my blog, and you'll see the last post was that. And I think we'll probably do that because we're going to talk about use of force. A lot of people were upset about what they saw that sergeant do in Waimanalo, although I don't think he did anything wrong. I'll break that down and tell you why there's a difference between reasonableness and unlawfulness. There's a gap there. You can literally not have excessive force, but still have it deemed unreasonable, which means another cop in the same position wouldn't have done it. So there's things that happen like that. We'll probably talk about the Hawaii Lower Ridge murder. I want to break down Salmon Tyrell again, just kind of give you a heads up on like how I think everything went and my final thoughts, all that good stuff. So we'll get into it. I got a bunch of stuff. I got a list of about 30 that I want to do. So feel free, let me know. And if you're interested, I'm breaking down any of the cold case murders in Hawaii or the notable ones that we talked about. You can always go to patreon.com/DougKorenic and sign up. We're at about 100 videos right now. Oh no, 55 videos is where we're at. We're at 55 videos. And we break down just about every case you can imagine. Oh, Christopher Dede is a case I want to talk about. Brandon said sports betting in Hawaii. Many people do it. Yeah, so we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Just make sure you drop them in the channel. Try to hit me up. You can find me at Doug Korenic on all of my socials. And as always, if you like the video, smash that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Some of you still aren't getting notifications and you hit me up like I didn't get notifications. Hit that, ring that notification bell and set the notifications so that you get them for my channel and for my videos. So, cool. Thank you, Cherdon. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. You guys are awesome. I'll let you guys get to it Friday night. Be safe. Enjoy your weekend. And Patrons, I will see you 5:30 p.m. Eastern Hawaii time on Monday night. We'll finish up Honolulu Homicide, okay? Appreciate you guys. Mahalos.